What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm absolutely honored to have back on the show operational CIA MONARCH mind slave survivor, thriver, and whistleblower, devoted husband and loving father, blogger and content creator, published book writer and author, beloved podcast regular, and absolute warrior, J.R Sweet. A little bit about JR, if you missed his other episode, if you guys need a refresher, or if you're new here. For most of his life, JR believed he had grown up in a relatively normal family. That illusion shattered in 2017 at age 38 when long suppressed memories began to surface with devastating clarity. What emerged was the truth of systematic, ritualistic abuse beginning in infancy. He was tested at 5 years old for his capacity to dissociate, and from that moment forward became a CIA-sponsored mind slave. Programming occurred in multiple locations, most notoriously beneath Disneyland in Anaheim, California, where tunnels and hidden rooms facilitated trauma induction, filming of child exploitation material, human trafficking, and even ritual sacrifice. As a teenager, JR was sold to Senator Robert C. Byrd, who used him in blackmail operations, pornography production, and eventually cleared him for Pentagon-level black operations after a sadistic test of obedience involving the murder of someone JR cared deeply about. He carried out assassinations, guarded satanic rituals in underground complexes, and was positioned in proximity to figures in politics, Hollywood, and the music industry. He personally encountered people whose public personas hide lives of control and compromise. Yet, the most extraordinary chapter of JR's life is not what was done to him, but what he has done with the pain and devastation. In 2017, when the walls of amnesia began to crack, JR chose the path of exposure rather than silence. He began journaling every memory that returned, no matter how painful, grotesque, or professionally risky. Those raw, meticulously processed accounts now live live on his website, MormonMonarch.com, a digital lighthouse for other survivors and a public record that refuses to be erased. The writings are not sensationalized. They are sober, detailed, and relentlessly honest. They name locations, methods, handlers, and institutions, including the hidden intersection of certain religious hierarchies, government agencies, and elite bloodlines. Today, JR is a husband and father who protects his own children from the systems that once ensnared him. He's a writer whose self-published memoir, Mormon Monarch, will preserve his testimony for generations. Above all, he is proof that no matter the amount of programming, no depth of betrayal and no layer of dissociation can extinguish the divine spark that refuses to be enslaved. JR did not merely survive the unthinkable. He reclaimed every fragment of himself that they tried to shatter. He turned the weapon they forged against him, his own fractured mind, into the sharpest instrument of liberation. He rose from engineered silence into fearless speech. He became the unbreakable proof that even the most meticulously constructed cage collapses when one soul decides it will no longer obey. The darkness that tried to own him met a light it could not extinguish. The handlers who tried to program him met a man who reprogrammed his own destiny. The rituals that sought to break him met a spirit that returned stronger, clearer, and more radiant than before. JR is no longer their asset. He's no longer their secret. He's no longer their slave. He is free. He is whole. He is the walking miracle who turned hell into testimony, pain into purpose, and survival into a beacon that refuses to dim. In him, the impossible became real. A mind they tried to enslave became the very force that helps mend others. A life they tried to erase became the voice that ensures the truth will never be buried again. JR did not just endure the darkness, he outshone it. And in doing so, he reminds the world that the human spirit, once awakened, is the most powerful force on earth. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming back today's guest of honor, survivor and overcomer, walking miracle, educator and content creator, voice for the voiceless, anti-child abuse and survivor advocate, passionate purveyor of truth, absolute badass, someone I'm honored to call a friend, and a man on a mission to expose crimes against humanity being committed on innocent children and humans by our governments, corporations, and religious institutions, the one, the only, J.R. Sweet. J.R., I am so honored to have you back again today. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Emma. Yeah, that was a wonderful introduction. You're always so good at those. Yeah, thank you. It's good to be back. Yep.
I'm so happy to have you back. I always tell you this, but you're definitely the most requested guest that we have on. Everybody has just really taken to responding well to the way that you educate, to your testimony, and just to you as a person. So it's wonderful the impact that you've had, and I see it online with your following growing and people sharing your content and purchasing your book. And I'm just really excited about, you being out there as a whistleblower and helping be a voice for a community that desperately needs somebody like you. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
You're welcome. Yeah, I want to add that it's not just me. I'm a voice. There's many of us. There's so many of us, and I see a lot of survivors coming out and talking, and God bless them. And for me, I work very hard at following God's will. This is a very difficult road, and I want my goals to be aligned with God's. And so I try very hard to align my goals with that of God's will. And I believe personally that that is why people find such interest in my work, is because I strive to follow God and to have God guide me in my work. It's all based on truth, on how I can remember things. I try very hard not to embellish things and just tell you how it is. And people react to that and they respond to that. It's just how it was. And so I appreciate this opportunity. You give a lot of people, Emma. Thank you so much from so many people for the voice that you give. You are a wonderful individual, and you will be blessed eternally for your work. And so, thank you. I really appreciate it.
I'm grateful that I get to do this, and there's no more important cause or purpose in the world. And it's great that now, in a year like this year, 2026, that people are actually responding to listening to this and believing it. Just even 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that wasn't the case. So it's a really wonderful time to be out here helping championing this movement, and it's great to see you going on other podcasts and, your work being spread around to different facets of society and, just reaching different people. And speaking of that, I had put out for this show a few feelers on social media about what people want to hear from you. I've had you on a lot, and I've asked you a lot of questions. We've gone over a lot of topics, including a lot of the things that are in your book and blog. And so I was really curious what the audience would want to know from you. And so for people listening, what we're going to do today is JR actually wrote down all of your questions for him, and we're going to devote this episode to all of you. This episode is going to be constructed of answering all of your questions that you guys wanted to know from JR. And so JR, I'll hand it over to you. And if you want to preface or speak of any or talk about anything before we get into it, feel free to, but I'll let you start wherever you want to with this.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Yeah. When you put out those posts that you did asking for people's questions, I thought that was a beautiful idea. I have had so much support from the community. There is a community out there, a survivor community, a community of survivors, and also a community of people who want to help survivors. And when I saw those questions, I said, well, I've already talked a lot about my memories of things. Let's just address the people's questions. And so I think it's a wonderful thing that so many people responded. Now, some questions I'll be able to answer, and some questions I won't be able to answer, but that's okay. I just wanted to go through them and try to answer as many as I could. And part of that is because I respect all of the people in the community, and I want to do the best that I can. Now, one of the first things I want to do is let people know that our conversation will be complicated, and this information is intended for people who are 18 years or older. And so if you are younger than 18, I don't want you involved in this yet. You need to wait until you're old enough to comprehend these things. The sad thing about all that is that these things are being done to people younger than 18, and it just is what it is. So I also want to give people a trigger warning. We will go through things that could trigger people, and I don't want to inadvertently trigger anyone. That can be a painful process. I'm well aware of that. I received a tone call this week that triggered me, and that was painful. I was able to come to terms with it and realize that I had been triggered and work through that, but it is still something people need to be aware of. So you have done a wonderful job, Emma, of explaining my story. You did a wonderful job there. I appreciate it. I'm a survivor of the Central Intelligence Agency's trauma-based mind control program. It's a continuation of MK Ultra, often referred to as Project Monarch. Monarch programming is very real. This is not something from a fairy tale. This is not something the CIA ended. That is ridiculous. It's ignorant, and it's even dangerous to think that they did, because through doing so, you allow them to keep operating in the dark. And we're not going to allow them to keep operating in the dark anymore. We are going to be raising our voice, and we are going to speak out against these things because we know they're happening. This is a top secret government project. This is something they don't want anyone knowing about. But it has to be learned about, and the people have to learn it. And so this question and answer forum will be good for answering a lot of questions regarding that. I'm an author. I've published a book. It's called Mormon Monarch Born into a Deep State, and you can purchase that online through my website, which will take you to lulu.com, and you can buy it there. Now, I do have it coming up on sale in April. And so if you're thinking about buying it, wait until April. I think I put the price at like $23 or something like that. And so I like to provide it at a discounted rate. It'll be on sale for the whole month of April. And if you want a copy, I'd wait until then, because you'll be able to get a significant discount on it. But with that said, you can also go to my website, and I will provide for you at no monetary cost all of my journaled memories that are in my book. You can read them there for free. They're under writings on past. And I also was able to include my book introduction and the foreword that was composed by my wife for my book. I also included my works cited and references at the bottom of the introduction and forward page. And so dang near all the information in that book is available for free online. So go online, you can read it for free. I'm not trying to make money at this. I am trying to educate people on what is happening in our country and around the world. And so you can find that all for free. If you want a hard copy, though, grab a hard copy. I like books, and so I have a book because I like to have it around. So go ahead and buy a book. You can also buy a book, send it to your U.S. senator, send it to the president, send it to the CIA director, send it to the FBI. Demand that these things be investigated. I'm not afraid of that. Send it to them. Let them know we know what's going on, and we know that they're not doing a damn thing about it. And so I would empower everyone to do something to that effect. I don't support violence in any way, just to make that clear. But you can buy a book and you can send it to your senator or House representative. So I was born into a generationally ancestral royal satanic family bloodline. That's why one of the reasons why the CIA was so interested in me And my family was deeply involved with the CIA, and I come from a family of CIA human bioprogrammers. And it's a miracle that I've been able to wake up and regain my consciousness, and I've been able to work at exposing these things. So with all that said, I would like to dive directly into your questions, because I've talked to you folks a lot, and I've done a lot of podcasts, and I haven't answered a lot of questions. I try to answer them on Twitter, but I'm a busy man. I do project management. I don't know if people know that. I'm involved in the construction industry. I have been for 25, 26, 27 years. I don't know. I'd have to add it all up. And so I'm very busy. But I try very hard in my spare time, in my free time, to work on these things. So today, as Emma said, we're going to go through all your questions. I really appreciate all you people. I want you to know that. I don't always answer people online. It's very difficult, like I said, to have the time to do so. But I do appreciate all of you. I've watched you. I've seen who truly support survivors, and we really appreciate you. Emma and I were just talking here a little while ago before we went on the air about how important it is, not just for survivors to speak out, but for the supporters to speak out. You folks support this movement. And so you are so important to bring in these things to light. And I hope that in this conversation, you feel empowered to shine your light on what you've learned and to share that within your community. You throw a stone in that lake and you create that ripple. We need to make the biggest ripple the world has ever seen. We cannot tolerate what is happening. Right now, the Epstein files have been coming out, and the whole world is watching. The world is watching what we are going to do. What are the American people going to do when they've learned all these things that are going on at the highest levels of government, in Hollywood, in the music industry? What are we going to do? We have to raise our voice, and we have got to stop this in its tracks, because people are becoming aware, and the time has come. The time is now. And so I just wanted to communicate that with you folks. We really appreciate you. So thank you. So I'm going to dive right into it. What I did was I put all your questions into a list, and I'm just going to read through every single one, and we'll see what you guys had to say, and I will do my best to answer your questions. And Emma is going to so graciously assist us with that as well whenever she has something she can add to it. And so thank you, Emma. Yeah, these things aren't easy to do. I don't know if people know it, but I like meeting with people like Emma. You're a beautiful individual, Emma, and I really appreciate everything you do. But these things are painful for folks like me, for survivors, and we're trying to do the best we can. So I want you to understand that. But I went through X. I have an account on X. You can find me there. And everyone posted a lot of really good questions. And so on X, let's just go ahead and we're going to dive right in and get started. So I will read your name, just so you're aware. You put your name down on the list. And so we're going to read your name, and I'm going to read your question, okay? And I'm going to do my best to answer it. Yeah, this is going to be maybe embarrassing for everyone. I don't know. We'll see. And so Sarah Morgan had a question for me. And she said, it would be interesting to understand how his wife has supported JR and how she has learned to be a strong survivor in all of this too. And
great question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. My wife is a sweetheart. I love my wife. And I believe that God stepped in and placed Kate in my life to pull me away and allow me to come to this day where I can talk to you. She helped to free me and get me away from my abuse base. I was engaged to Nikki Hilton when I met my wife, and my wife helped to pull me away from that engagement. My wife has helped in so many ways. I am so grateful to her. And the day will probably come, Emma, when you can have her on your show and you can chat with her and talk about these things. So I don't want to go into it too much, but my wife is a good listener. My wife knows how to listen. And when I first started to remember this stuff, my poor wife, Kate, she thought I was losing my mind. She didn't know what to think, but she's a good listener and a good observer. And she seeks the truth in things, not just an answer. Answers can be lies provided to you as a substitute for the truth. But my wife sought the truth in these things, and she was able to witness firsthand the harassments that not only I was facing, but the harassments that were aimed at her as well to keep me quiet. And so my wife has been a gift to me from God that I am so grateful for. She's also been an emotional support. She's a good listener, but as she came to realize these things were real and these things were true, she became a true emotional, spiritual, and mental support for me. And she has helped me in so many ways. And so it's important for spouses to support those who are going through these things, because you're our support base, especially when everything hits the fan and you start to remember. So I am eternally grateful to my wife, and God bless her. And someday she can come on and talk about her own personal experience.
How far into your marriage or relationship did you remember? How long were you together before the memories started coming through?
Oh, about probably 18, 19 years.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah, we've been together a long time.
Yeah.
And so, we were just talking the other day. We took a walk. I try to take walks with her. And we were talking about all the things that we've been through together and all of the things that we have seen together. And it's incredible. Yeah, we've been together for quite a while, and we were together for a long time. She talked to me about how the other day about how I never used to listen to country music, for example. I used to hate it. And when I started to remember all this stuff, I do enjoy country music now, because it takes me back a little bit into that part of my mind where I still have things that I need to remember, and I'm not afraid of it anymore. And I'm able to face those things.
Wow.
And yeah, that can help to bring it out. And then we talked about celebrities. I used to hate celebrities. I used to just think, I don't want anything to do with celebrities. They'd come up in the news, and they usually weren't in our conversations as a family, because I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so it was very strange for her to hear me talk about celebrities in my memories, but it also makes a lot of sense to her, because the memories that I was having about celebrities aren't good. And so it makes sense that my subconscious and conscious mind would be pushing that away and not even want to address that at all in my past before I started to remember this stuff. So she's been able to see all those little things that make sense to her now that I've begun to remember these things. So
It's really special too for people who have your book. They already know this, but if you don't have JR's book, Kate actually wrote the foreword to it also, which is really special. So she had a big part in helping JR get his memoir out.
Yeah, she did. And she helped me edit it. My book is mammoth. Where is it? Here's a copy. And so this is one of my editorial copies. She helps me with editing because I'm not very good at spelling. And so I have to go through and fix my spelling and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is huge. And so to have someone help, and I'm a slow reader. I'm just slow. And so I read every word and I try to get it all right. But my wife's a lot better at that than me. So, and we still find things. I have people reach out to me. And so, speaking of the survivor community and my thanks, I have people reach out to me and say, hey, on page whatever, you have a misspelling. And so in the next edition, I'll be able to correct that and fix those spelling errors. So yeah, I really appreciate that. She's been able to help a ton. She did the forward and helped me with editing a lot. So yeah, she's been a big help. Yeah. So thank you, Emma.
And quick shout out to Kurt Metzger for giving a copy of JR's book to Joe Rogan also.
Yeah, definitely a shout out to Kurt. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I really that video he did. Oh, the country music song. I was just dying because there were so many references in it that are relative to the project. And I was just dying. Yeah, that guy is awesome. Yeah. Someday I'll get to talk to Kurt on his podcast. Yeah, what a cool guy. Yeah. And it's nice to laugh,
It is.
Yeah, sometimes you need a little comedy in it. And it's not very funny. And so to have someone bring at least a little bit of comedy in is like, oh, thank you. So
and he dressed up as John C. Lilly and brought like a giant dolphin.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love that.
Great.
Yeah. It's good.
We do have to laugh our way through this. Otherwise, we're just going to cry our way through it. I'd rather laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, thank you to Kurt. Kurt Metzger is awesome. Yeah.
And thank you to Kate. Thank you to everybody in this circle that we have that's helping.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one way or another. And then the next question was by V2K Busters. And so V2K Busters said, I would like you and JR to do an ear inspection live on your show. I know you won't because JR is mind controlled and his thoughts won't allow him to. Just saying it would be cool. Yeah. I am sorry, V2K Busters, but I am no longer mind controlled. I am consciously aware. I do get triggered and I do experience things such as voice to skull. But I have learned how to recognize them and I've learned how to deal with them. And so I actually really appreciated his statement because when I was sold to Byrd back in '93, my grandfather, when I was going through programming at the Disneyland theme park, he did tell me that I was going to be getting chipped. I would get a chip in my body. And he said that this was very important, and they framed it in a way that said, this is good. This will help us be able to find you if you are ever lost or you are operational and a situation arises and we can't locate you, we'll be able to locate you. And so I am chipped. I haven't been able to go to the doctor and find an honest doctor that I could trust to get that removed and located. But that is something I would like to do. And so I would say to you, you want to do an ear inspection, great. Let's find that darn thing. Because Byrd implanted it in me. And he implanted it in me in Fort Worth, Texas, at a military installation. And I know this because I've been able to work through that memory. It's not published yet, but someday I'll be able to publish that. And talk about that more. I go through things like ear ringing. And so I know when I've really pissed somebody off at the agency or in the network, because I'll get a massive, it's like just boom, huge. It's like someone just slammed a gong next to my head and my ear will go boom. And I'm like, whoa. And I'll lose all frame of everyone around me. They become irrelevant. I'm like, okay, something's going on. I don't understand what, but I have to just be here, be now, and then it'll subside. and then I'm able to move through. This will even happen when I'm at work. I might be in the middle of a conversation with somebody, a client or someone, a laborer or a carpenter, and boom, it'll hit me, and it's difficult to work through because I pretty much just stop and I'm like, oh my ear is ringing, and it'll take a minute and then it's gone, and then I'm able to keep going. But I'm able to work through that. And so I do experience that. And I would imagine other survivors out there go through something very similar. I've also experienced voice to skull technology on me. I've been woken up in the middle of the night to loud voices speaking in my room. And I'm like, whoa, what is going on? And I've just woken up and I'm like, okay, what was that? What on earth was that? But it is clear as day. And the first time I can remember experiencing that was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, whoa, that was crazy. Because people would say, oh, well, you're just crazy. You're losing your mind. Well, that's nice. You can say whatever you want. But I heard it clear as day. And the first thought that popped into my head was, oh, weird. That's that voice to skull technology stuff. That is a trip because I just experienced that. And then I also, here last year, actually around this same time, I'd had surgery on my knee, and I was incapacitated for a little while, and I was bedridden for weeks. And I just laid there. And after about 3-4 days, my wife came into the room and she had my bottle of pain pills. And she said, I'm throwing these away. And I said, great, throw them away. I was like drooling on myself from the damn things. And so she threw those away. And a while later, I'm not sure how many days, this was probably a week or two into it, I had gotten so bored and I'd gotten so much sleep. I said to myself, well, let's just go into my subconscious layers a little bit. Let's shut off all thought in my mind. And I want to just work through some layers in my mind, a mental practice. And as I started to do that, it was really interesting, Emma. I reached a layer in my subconscious where I could hear the voice to skull technology in my mind. And what it was saying was, you're a loser. You can't do anything. You're going to fail. You're a loser. And it was just this repetitive, negative sentences about how I was a loser. I could never do anything. And that was, they were trying to access my mind and my programming and my conscious by creating the reality that they wanted to be manifested in the physical world. And so I've suffered from that my whole life. Growing up, where I always considered myself a loser. I could never do anything. I had trouble accomplishing stuff. By the time I got to college, I'd been able to work through it. I graduated college with honors. And then I started my own business and I was able to work past those things. But they were trying to use that on me again here just a little while ago. And so V2K Busters does have a good point. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate his question. So those things are real, and it's no joke. And so this technology is very real. And we have to be aware of that and be consciously aware of that in order to deal with that. So I wanted to address that question.
Do you think too, when you say that you go to a certain, or you had went to a certain brainwave state essentially, and you could easier connect with hearing that voice to skull coming through, do you think that that's sort of intentional, that there's a specific like brain state, a frequency in a sense that like they're able to use to send those voices and messages?
I would imagine you are correct in your analysis, Emma.
Because that's fascinating. I haven't really heard that talked about, but it would make sense.
Yeah, because they were trying to put it in at a certain layer, at a certain frequency, so that when I'm in my conscious state, I would never realize that was going on. And it was buried down in several layers of my mind. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, Yeah, they do try to send it in at a certain frequency at a certain layer of your mind so that you're not even aware of it. It's just this subconscious nagging. Survivors will talk about things like self-sabotage, things like that. Those can be occurring because they're putting that sabotage in at those lower levels of your consciousness. So, yeah, it is important to pay attention to that. Later on, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the questions on that process of how to work into that state. So, and then Guba Homestead, she's online a lot on Twitter, and she seems to be a wonderful person. Yeah. And so she says, if he's willing to share more of his relationship with Jesus Christ. I listened to his guest talk at a hotel conference and him sharing how God said he needed to remember things. After everything he has gone through and still goes through, how he leans on God. And so for Guba, I would like to say that God is my rock. God is my rock. I have this world and this life are temporal. We will leave this world and we will go back home where we came from, which is with God. And for me, God is my rock. Sometimes I lose focus on that, and I always try to pull myself back to it because it is so important. When I was put through suicide programming, I've joked with people before that the best thing the CIA ever did was kill me because it put me back into that window of where we came from and brings me back to my center and an understanding that this life is short. And when I die, I just go back home and I will be with God again. And so my relationship with Jesus Christ is very difficult. And I can accept that. When I was raised in a satanic family bloodline that was hiding in the Mormon church. And in that family, I was taught that Jesus Christ is Lucifer, that Lucifer is Jesus. And so I have a hard time with Jesus, even today. I pray to Jesus, I pray to God, and I ask for a stronger relationship and understanding of Jesus Christ. And I don't, all I can say is that I'm in process at this time, and I will accept whatever outcome God gives me in that. And so I did not meet God when the CIA stopped my heart, and I did not meet Jesus. But I did meet with somebody who is a figure from the Bible and worked with Jesus when I was there in the afterlife. And so I have open arms to Jesus, but I have a lot to work through. And so I'm working on that, and we'll see what becomes of that before my time ends. And I'm patient with that. I want the truth, and that's what I seek. And God will give that to me in due time. And so it's difficult, Emma. It's really difficult for survivors because they raise you. My father would tell me that. My father would tell me we worshiped Lucifer as a family and that Jesus was Lucifer. Everything was upside down. So I'm still working through that. Okay, end of times talk. This is a question from you. Please ask him about how Disney movies and characters are used to program. It would mean a lot to hear his take. This is a really good question. The themes are important in this, is how I perceive it. The themes are connected to various personalities. For example, Alice is a theme from the Disney movies that is connected to personalities, and that is with regard to making porn, as well as you cannot even protect the ones you love. And so Alice was a really important figure in my life growing up. and the things that were done to me under the park and that I was made to do with different figures that we would say were Alice were horrific. I would be made to make porn with an individual that we would call Alice, and those girls would change. Sometimes it was the same girl for maybe 2 years, but then I can remember also being made to kill Alice.
Oh.
And so there's a lot of distortion there, and that is in order to connect themes to those personalities. With Alice, it's like you can't even protect the ones you love. Because Alice and we became good friends when we'd been programmed together for a couple years, get to know each other, then you're made to actually kill her. It's a horrible thing. And so it's a mind bender. Another one is the captain from Peter Pan. The captain was a horrible individual who would make you do horrible things. And that was connected to a theme, which is connected to certain personalities that they want doing certain things. Another one, the Mad Hatter. Those personalities will get updates through Disney film, such as that movie by Johnny Depp about Alice in Wonderland. That was a huge update film. I saw that movie before I started to wake up in 2017, and I couldn't even finish it at that time, and I wasn't even awake yet. And I was like, I can't watch the rest of this. I couldn't understand why, but I knew I didn't want to watch it, and I couldn't watch it anymore. And so those films are used for programming updates in order to take that subconscious, pull it out, put it in the conscious. Your conscious doesn't even understand what is going on or why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, but it's an update because they have to keep updating your programming. When you get away from your abuse base, when you remove yourself from all that stimuli that they were using, you remove yourself from your triggers, they can't have that. And so they're always trying to handle you, always trying to update you. And the soft core way of doing that is simply through film. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be aware of what you watch even. I don't watch Disney films. Sometimes I'm tempted. I'm like, oh, maybe I should sit down and watch Alice in Wonderland and allow myself to be triggered so that I can experience that and go through that. But that's some scary shit, man. Like, I don't know that I want to do that. And so I hope that I have addressed that question.
Do you think, too, that some of these themes, such as Disney movies, for example, they are very kid-friendly when they're taken out of context of the programs that you grew up in and placed in society? You know, they're tailored to children. They're not, of course, adults enjoy them, too, a lot of times, but do you think, too, the themes make it easier for the child to be able to form the personalities around it because it is colorful? They try to make it, you know, character-based and things that children like. Do you think that that's also a reason why they'd use a theme versus, say, not a theme and just trying to, you know, convince you of like one little character or that somebody has a name versus building this whole story around it?
Yeah, I do believe that is accurate, Emma. Kids are attracted to it. But I want to build on that just a little bit. Okay. Because they also have things like, let's just say a lunchbox with Mickey Mouse on it, or with Donald Duck, or with Alice in Wonderland. So you go to a potluck or you go to someone's home and you see that, and it gets to where it's everywhere. And when you're in the project, that's a trigger again. And in the project, you are constantly being programmed that everyone's involved. There's no escape. You can never get away from this. And as you move throughout society and you see all this symbology, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, all these things, you go back to your programming again, and you keep quiet. It might be to keep you quiet. It triggers you again. And so, but I do agree that it is kid friendly, and it also helps them to disguise it. Because you know, folks, I'm just blown away at how many people take their kids to Disneyland or Disney World. It's like their family vacation.
Yes.
Well, you're going to the satanic land of pedophilic paradise. Like, you got to stop doing that, people. You're supporting it. And it just blows me away. And some of them are actually people in the project, and they're taking their own children to be programmed. I've known families like that, as well as my own family. But then there's just people who have no idea. And the more that people learn, the sooner we can stop this, and we can just shut Disney down altogether. We have to, because there is so much programming steeped in that. So I don't want to get worked up, though. But yeah, it is definitely kid themed, and it helps to pull children in. And then it takes you into even more programming, like color coded programming. You have color coded, the color blue, the color yellow, the color red. And so then it takes you into that. But then we could go into Star Trek and all kinds of different things. So very bad deal.
And honestly, like, parents only need to actually go watch those movies if you don't agree that, you know, Disney's bad for any reason, or that you should take it away from your children. Just go actually sit through a movie and like listen and watch the messages, and you'll see that almost every movie is about traumatized kids being abused, that have lost their families, that are being preyed on by adults or monsters. Like, it's very satanic messaging that you're actually giving your child. They are, you know, these movies are dressed up to look all fun and, you know, whimsical and playful, but they're actually very satanic in their messaging, which I don't think a lot of people realize because of how it's presented as this, like, you know, fun thing to have your children watch. But they're very dark. The movies are very, very dark.
Very dark, and they just keep getting darker.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. Yep, it's coming out in plain sight anymore, and people just have to learn to see it.
Yes.
So, agreed.
Thank you for addressing that.
Yeah, and part of the Disney thing too, Emma, is making it all appear to be fantasy. Yes. They're trying to instill in the human consciousness that, no, these things are fantasy. No, they're not. What they're talking about is very real, but they're working with black magic and trying to convince the population that it's harmless, but it's not. It's a very bad deal. So, yeah, thank you for addressing that. People should do their research on Disney. So the next one is Los Angeles Havana Syndrome Group. I don't have all their handles and all that stuff. I just tried to keep it simple. But please ask him if he thinks it's a global wireless brain-to-computer interface net with no escape, using scalar waves and pulsed microwave radio frequency. Then please ask if he thinks the intel agencies have the ability to listen to everyone's thoughts, and are they recording them? Thanks. Well, thank you, Los Angeles Havana Syndrome Group. I do appreciate your question. I can't answer a lot of that. My concern is 5G technology and the towers, and I wonder how that interacts with the chip that I have in me. But other than that, I don't even know how to address that or how to answer that. I don't know that they can record our thoughts. I don't know the answer to that. So I do appreciate the question, though. There's one called, this individual is excommunicated, and they ask, explain the way you can cover up and assume normal Mormon identity. I don't know that I understand this question. I don't consider myself a normal Mormon, nor do I pursue a normal Mormon identity. Personally, I have removed my records from the church. I am no longer a member of the church. I want nothing. Yeah, I want nothing to do with it. After I learned my past and worked through my memories, I wrote to the church and I said, I want removed from your roster. I want nothing to do with you. And they sent me a letter back and they said that is an ecclesiastical matter and you have to go talk to your local bishop. Yeah, I hadn't been to church in years. And so I was like, bullshit. I wrote them back and I said, no, this is not an ecclesiastical matter. You will remove my records now or I will sue you. And they wrote me back and said, okay, your records are removed. You're no longer a member of the church.
Go, JR.
Yeah, I want nothing to do with that church. And so I don't know the answer to that. I could never resume a normal Mormon identity after what I've remembered. That church is so corrupt. I want nothing to do with it. So I'm not a Mormon anymore. I've been removed from the records, and I just want nothing to do with it. So, but my dog did come to say hi. We'll see if she jumps up at some point. Yeah. So that was from Excommunicated. There's an individual calls themselves Old Soul. Is there a daily routine that JR does to help him feel safe and distance from his programming? And is he planning on writing another book? Does he also enjoy interacting with his followers on X? Sometimes I do enjoy interacting with people on X, and sometimes I don't have time for it. Yeah. And sometimes I get triggered on X. There are people who intentionally come after me and attack me and attempt to trigger me. And so X can be a very complicated platform for me, and I try to limit my exposure to those things. And so if I'm not responding on X to your comments, I apologize, but I have to be careful, and I have a life that I have to live, and I want to live a healthy life. And so sometimes I enjoy it and sometimes I don't, and sometimes I completely avoid it. But daily routines, that's a good question. So for me, I worry about my safety. And so I do, how can I work? Well, I carry a handgun everywhere I go. If you see me, you can assume that I am an armed individual. I sleep with a handgun. It's under my pillow and in various places. I don't just have one. And I place objects throughout my home so that in any situation, I know that I have something that I can use in the event of something occurring in my home or on the road or any other situation. As a survivor, you have the legal right to protect yourself, and I would advise you to do so. And so I am always working at my own safety and my family's safety as part of my daily routines. As far as another book, I'll do a third edition at some point. I'm going to be working through some more of my memories. I have more things that I have to publish at some point in the future. But I have to get back into a daily routine of journaling. And so survivors who've been put through a lot of hell, you had your life controlled and planned by others. Now that you are healing, it is time to control and plan your own life. And you have the ability to do that and to make that happen. I have a book that I use that I'm going to get back into the habit of. I started it again the other day, and I have the ability and the right to design my own life. You can design it and you can plan it. And so I would advise every survivor to sit down with a pen and paper. And it's important not only to journal out your past, but to plan your future. Plan out what you're going to do, when you're going to wake up, how you're going to use that time. Otherwise, time just becomes lost and you might not do anything. And so I'm going to get better. I have been better in the past, and I let it slough for a little while, but I'm going to get back into it again of planning my own life better. And so it's important to take a hold of your own life and plan it for yourself, because it is incredible to me how much energy and time was put into planning my life and my path. And I've taken that power from them. Well, now I can take that power and I can use it for myself. I can plan it into 15-minute intervals. I can get up at a certain time. I can sit down and I can journal memories. I can journal what I'm going to do. I can record my previous day, and I can plan out all of my big goals. Goals are important. And so you as a survivor, or you as an individual, period, have the right and the ability to do that. So work on planning your own life. And so that's a routine that I'm going to get back into. So I hope that answers that for Old Soul. Then there's Frank. Frank, love thy enemy. And so Frank says, I'd like to hear more about his experiences that mirror what he saw at Disneyland. I love his site, and his memoirs are fantastically detailed. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate you as well. Now, I'd like to hear more about his experiences that mirror. And so when I was going through programming at Disneyland, we'd be going through programming there that would involve satanic ritual abuse. It would involve cannibalism, being made to drink blood, being made to eat human flesh, being made to make kiddie porn, all those things. And then they would make you do that out in the real world. And so you'd be getting programmed to be conditioned to be around murder, to be around cannibalism and drinking blood. And then you'd be made operational, where you would be made to run a knife, and you would be made to slit out someone's throat, and that blood would be caught, and then you'd be made to drink it. And so the things that were happening at Disneyland were happening in the real world. It was just programming and training and conditioning that you were being put through there, and then they would activate those personalities in the real world when you were operational, if you were being used operationally. And so that's a difficult one to dive too far into without taking up a ton of time. But a lot of the experiences I went through in Disneyland were mirrored out there in the world, being made to do different things. So, and then Sunny Brimstone, you asked the question, I'd like to know more about his grandfather, Jim Reeves. I had a lot of people reach out and ask me about my grandfather, Emma. And that's interesting to me. There is she says, or this individual, Sunny Brimstone, says, there is a conspiracy story about him being connected to JFK's assassination. I find that interesting because I can remember my grandfather in a programming session, and I got really mad. I haven't written all that out, and so I can't go too deep into it. But I can remember telling my grandfather that I did not approve of what was happening, and it was wrong, and I was going to talk, and him telling me, you can't talk. We even killed the president. And so RFK is an important figure in all of this. He also used that with Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy, for me growing up, was a hero of mine. And he told me the same thing. We even killed Audie Murphy. He was one of the most decorated soldiers in World War II. And the CIA killed him too. And so that is interesting that there's a conspiracy story about him being connected to JFK's assassination. I didn't know that. And then Jim, she says, or this individual says, Jim Reeves was a country western singer that Sweet alleges didn't die in a plane crash. No, he didn't die in a plane crash. That was just all a big facade. They faked his death, and he went on to live a life outside of the country music industry. This is my kitty. I wanted to introduce
Oh,
my kitty, Miss Venus. Oh, she's pushing buttons here. Let me make this go away. Oh, I don't know how to make this. There we go. Yeah, so this is my kitty.
oh, so sweet.
She's a sweetie. So, yeah, he didn't die. Jim Reeves was a character that my grandfather played. And so the next individual, the name on the account is blank, and that's the name, blank. And he says, or this individual says, he talked about how, I believe this individual meant to say, his grandfather had played the role of country musician Jim Reeves and had led multiple lives and had multiple wives. What were those lives? What was the significance of the ring that he had? And did he talk about any attempts on his life since he was paranoid? Excellent points. Thank you, Blank. And so my grandfather did lead multiple lives. And so he led the life of Jim Reeves. Now, I don't understand all those dynamics. I want people to understand that. I don't understand it all. I know that my grandfather told me that he was Jim Reeves, and I know that Senator Robert Byrd told me that he was Jim Reeves, and this would come up in conversation in various places and various times throughout my life. But various wives, he was married to Mary Reeves, and he was also married to my grandmother, is who they would say, Esther. And it's very complicated. The ring he had, there's a picture, and it's on my website. I think it's under Who Am I? And you can see my grandfather sitting on a sofa, and he's covering one of his hands with his other hand because he had a ring on that he didn't want anyone to see him wearing. And I can remember, I was a young child then, but I can remember my father questioning my grandfather. There it is, right there, Emma. Yep, he's covering up his hand in that image so that people cannot see the ring. And I don't understand the significance of that ring. A lot of these things were kept secret, even from us. But I do remember my father at the time of that picture saying things about his ring and how important it was to have that covered up. And so there was something there to do with that ring. Now, with my grandfather's paranoia, I have my kitty here. He had a cat when I was younger, and he used to shave his cat every year. He would shave it and just buzz that poor little kitty. And that kitty hated it and would be mad at him for a while. But the reason he was doing that is because the agency and other agencies around the world had developed a technology of what they call the acoustic kitty. You can look this stuff up. It's just online. And my grandpa, he was paranoid that someone would bug his cat or his animals. And so he would actually buzz his cat and remove all of its fur so that so that he could ensure that it wasn't being used as an acoustic kitty. And so when I started to remember things, I realized that, and I was like, oh, wow, I remember that. That's so weird. And then other times I have a lot of flashes of being with my grandfather and him explaining to me how to stay alive, how to deal with bad situations, being out to dinner with him and working through things. He was always concerned about safety, security, and people trying to get at us as a family. And so I want to move on to the next question really quick because this is also about my grandfather. This is a dinosaur figure who's asking, and I'd like to hear more details about his grandfather, Jim Reeves. Was he forced to kill off the Jim Reeves character, or did he have the freedom to decide that for himself? I don't know the answer to that. And so that's a really good question, but I don't know. How was he able to be two people at once? My grandfather worked for the Union Pacific Railroad, and he did a lot of traveling for the Union Pacific Railroad. And with that job and all that traveling, he was able to do a lot of stuff around the country, and no one even questioned it twice because he was traveling for the Union Pacific Railroad. And the Union Pacific Railroad, folks, look into that some because you're going to find a lot of stuff about the Union Pacific Railroad, pedophilia, homosexual pedophilia, and trauma-based mind control, and the trafficking of children. And so the Union Pacific Railroad is a great resource to start looking into. And then they said, any other examples we can look up? Yeah, look up Union Pacific. Who manufactured Reeves' life? I can't tell you a definitive answer on that. I can tell you what I believe because of my conversations with my grandfather and Byrd. I believe that the CIA and Byrd created that persona and that individual, that character for the country music industry. And I'm not sure exactly why, other than social engineering of some kind. I don't know. That's a great question. So the next question is by Happy. They said, awesome. I'd love to know more about his family history and when and how they became Satanists. I don't know the answer to that entirely. I believe that it started when my grandfather, it definitely came through my grandfather's side, and I don't know how far back it goes. I know that we're connected to King Henry VIII, and I need to do more research on all that stuff myself. So I apologize, but I can't answer much on that. And then they also say more about Disneyland and his grandfather, what happened to the real Reeves. And so I don't know. You know, I wonder if, I don't know how it all worked with Jim Reeves. If my grandfather and other people created that character and all of them played that role together so that role was able to be consolidated into several individuals and create that entire persona, or if it was just my grandfather who played that role and that persona. I don't know the answer to that. I would love to know if I could get to the bottom of it, but I don't. And so I'm sorry I can't answer more on that for folks. You know, for me, it's tough because I can remember my grandfather, you know, he was always singing. When I was a kid growing up, he was always singing, and he loved to sing. And one of his favorite songs was Penny Candy. And I would recommend to everyone, go listen to Penny Candy. And after you've heard the entirety of that song, you tell me if that is not a pedophilic, disgusting song. Because you can't listen to that song and then you just listen to it. It's disgusting. And he was always singing that song. It was one of his favorites. Always singing to us, always playing the guitar, musical instruments all over the house. Him and Byrd talked about it openly with me in Texas at the Jim Reeves Memorial. After I'd been chipped in Fort Worth, that next day we went to the Jim Reeves Memorial in, I think it's in Tyler, Texas, outside Tyler. And they just talked openly with me about it. My grandpa looked at the statue of Jim Reeves and he said, doesn't that guy look familiar? And I looked at it and I was a 15-year-old kid. I was like, no, what are you talking about? And I'd been abused all night and traumatized and put through hell. But anyway, they just told me flat out, like, yeah, I was that guy. I played that role. And then later when I got married, when Kate and I got married, at our wedding, my grandfather was talking to one of my wife's brothers about country music because my wife came from a family that was raised on a dairy farm out in rural Idaho. And so country music was part of their life. And one of her brothers knew who Jim Reeves was. And my grandpa was just so excited that one of my wife's brothers knew who he was. He didn't know he was Jim Reeves, but he knew who Jim Reeves was. And he was just so excited to hear that he was a fan of his, even though he didn't know that he was Jim Reeves and played that role. And so, yeah, that was a theme that went through a lot of my life. And so I find all that interesting. And I'm going to be working on that more in the future, my research and gaining a more clear understanding of those things, just so people are aware. So I hope I've answered that as best that I can at this time. And then we have a question from Amelia Miles. I want to know if most celebrities have been subject to MK Ultra. Also, how can we help spread the word and help people still in it, like Britney Spears? This is an excellent question. How can we help these people? We can help by spreading awareness of these things. I believe that we need to address these issues not with anger, not with emotion, just simple fact. When I talk to people and they say, "Oh, did you see this movie or that movie or whatever?" I oftentimes, did I see Top Gun with Tom Cruise? Oh, you mean Tom Cruise? Well, he's a trauma-based mind slave. I really don't care what kind of films he's producing right now. And people don't know how to respond to that a whole lot, but it's putting it into their conscious. It's making it normal that people know what is going on and that we want nothing to do with it. And so I recommend to people just talk about it. Like it just is what it is, because that's what it is. It just is what it is. And so in my time, I can't say if all or most celebrities, I can only tell you what I know. There was a lot of people going through programming, in particular at the Disneyland trauma-based mind control facility, who were being programmed for Hollywood, who are being programmed for the music industry. There was a lot of them. Some of the personal ones in my life are Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise, Randy Travis, Billy Joel. Those are some of the ones that are close to me. And then like Charlie Pride. And so those are people that were put through programming or some programming. Like Randy Travis, he's an interesting case because he was abused as a child. He was in the project, and then he was able to work his way out of slavery in a sense, because he became aware that he was a trauma-based mind slave, and he was able to, Byrd described it, and my grandfather, I don't quite know how to explain all that, so I'll leave it at that. But Billy Joel, he's another trauma-based mind slave. So there's a lot of it. There is a ton of it in the music industry, in Hollywood, in religious institutions, in politics. And so people have to be aware of that. And there's signs for it. We can start to locate those individuals as you learn about the scars more and how to identify those individuals. There is a way to do it. And then they also said, I wanted to add this, does Hollywood really use clones often? I have no idea. In my experience, I don't know that I came around a whole lot of that clone stuff. I don't know. I still have a lot of stuff I need to remember. And so I can't answer that question for you. There are people out there who can, but it's not me. So then there was a question from Kaylee Kahn the Wisher. And so Kaylee says, does he think it's absolutely every single celebrity that's in big Disney movies that's complicit or involved? I don't know the answer to that. There's a lot of them, but I don't know the answer to all. And then how many people does he think are genuinely entrapped versus those who are genuinely happy being evil? This is an excellent question and an excellent point. And so there's a lot of people who don't know they are trapped. They don't know. But then there are people who do. Now, the people who don't know, like let's say Leonardo DiCaprio, for example, I don't believe that Leo understands the extent of his slavery, but he does get small bits and his subconscious does nag at him. And he doesn't trust anybody because he understands he's being manipulated. But I don't know how much he can remember and how much he knows. There's people like my uncle, Gail Pooley, who is, he was my handler throughout my youth. He's a pedophile. He's a murderer and a child rapist. He's a disgusting individual. And he knows what he's doing. He is well aware, but he's still been put through some programming himself. But he knows what's going on and he knows what he's doing. But he is willingly complicit and evil according to his own will. And then you have people like my father who were put through programming, were abused when they were raised, and he is complicit and he remembers enough to know better, but he is still involved and he is still abusive and he is still a disgusting individual. And so it's tough, Emma, because a lot of these things can get intermingled. They might know a little bit. A lot of this stuff is compartmentalized and not everybody has the whole picture, but they know enough that they should be able to make a conscious decision that they don't want to be involved with it. So there are those that don't know enough to make that conscious decision and they work actively at keeping them at that point. And there are those who know enough that they should be able to say, this is wrong, but they might be so messed up in the head that they're not even able to comprehend. And then my grandfather, he was a multiple. Some parts of him knew, some parts of him didn't, some parts of him wanted to expose it. Some parts of him even left me assets in order to be able to take care of myself when I woke up. He would tell me, when you wake up, your life is going to be in great danger. You have to be aware of that. I can remember when I turned 8, he gave me a watch. And this goes back to Kathy Bryan and her book, PTSD, Time to Heal. And in her book, she talks about how important it is to get a watch and keep track of time. Well, my grandpa had told me that when I was 8, because he knew that his grandson was in the project and that his grandson was going to be put through hell, but he was still willing to let it all happen. He wasn't going to fight it. But he still bought me a watch for my baptism into the church and told me to wear it and keep track of time and don't lose time. And he was always giving me little clues like that, but he wasn't able to fight it. He wasn't consciously strong enough. Then you have people like Senator Robert Byrd, where he was just one evil son of a bitch, that man. And he was well aware of what he was doing. And he was involved in mind slavery, human trafficking, a sponsor of child rape, child abuse, child molestation, child porn, an absolute disgusting piece of human garbage. And he was well aware of it. And then you have people like Charlie Pride. And Charlie Pride, he's an interesting case because he wanted out of the whole thing. But Byrd wouldn't let him out. Byrd refused to let him out of the project. And so I don't understand all those dynamics, but I do know that Charlie wanted out because Charlie had written a note to Byrd and made me stick it in my pocket and take it to Byrd because he knew I was going to be seeing Byrd. And I gave Byrd that note that Charlie had written, and Charlie wanted out, but Byrd wouldn't let him out. Now, that doesn't mean Charlie wasn't still a bad, bad dude, because he was, but he wanted out. I don't understand all that. So it can become extremely complicated, and a lot of information is compartmentalized. Like my mother knows I was involved in a government project, but she doesn't, I believe, understand what was happening to her son. She doesn't fully comprehend what was happening, and she's also a dissociate. And so it's really difficult for her. And she was born a twin on a military base outside of Japan, and her twin brother was put in the CIA. He was Army for a while, and then he became CIA. We considered him open door CIA because everyone in the family knew about it. And so his name was Jerry Brecken. And I don't want to talk much more about that because I don't want to bring any harm to Jerry, because I don't remember anything bad about Jerry, but he was open door CIA. Now, with that said, you wouldn't be able to find that out because that's not public knowledge. But in our family, that was public knowledge. We all knew that Jerry was CIA, spent time in Germany, finally had a nervous breakdown from it all, had to get out and start life over. And so it's all really complicated and difficult, and there's all kinds of levels to it. So moving on, another question. This is by Just Honest. Ask him about the creatures hiding in the mountains of California and who they may be, the ones that eat children. What are his beliefs? He likely went to heaven when he died, but I believe he didn't see God or Jesus. And so thank you for your question, Just Honest. I appreciate that tremendously. The creatures in the mountain that were eating children, you can call them creatures, I suppose. They were humans. The people I saw actually eating children, and they were Asian. I don't know who they were exactly. They belonged to a cult of some kind, an old cult that had been moving through history for years and years. My grandfather told me thousands of years this cult had been alive and active. As far as the creatures in the mountain, I think that's what you're referring to now. I think this question is just not asked properly. The slough is what we call them in the mountain. I don't know. I didn't get to see them, and thank God I didn't. They were supposed to be very dangerous beings of some kind. And so I can't answer that. I didn't see them. I do know how to get back into that facility. I know where that entrance was, and I don't talk about that, but a whole lot. But I understand how we could get back in there. But when I was in there and I'd come out, my grandfather told me those doors that you went through weren't just to keep people out; they were also to keep something in that mountain. That's how dangerous it is. And so it's a very dangerous topic to be talking about. That was in Mount Shasta at the Trinity Mountain Underground Complex. And people can read about that experience in my journal memories or in my book. Regarding my beliefs about the life hereafter, let me read this again. What are his beliefs? He likely went to heaven. We've already talked about that, how I see God. God is truth to me. When we pass away, we're going to go home. We're going to go back to where we came from, which is what I call heaven. And we're going to have to answer to everyone there at that place on what we did with our time here on this earth. And for me, it's really important to go back to that place and be able to tell those people, those spirits, that I did everything I could to expose this stuff. So I believe in God. I believe very strongly in God. God has kept me alive more times than I've talked about in my podcasts or in my book. And I have a very firm belief in God. It's not always the same as people would want to perceive it, and that's fine. But I do believe in God, and I'm still working on my relationship with Jesus Christ. So another question. This is from Holly, 1776. And so Holly says, Disney and its ties to MK Ultra. Specifically, how do they pick the kids they abuse? What role do these kids fulfill besides being celebrities? What tactics do they use to create the dissociative identity disorders? They choose us based on a lot of factors. So satanic family bloodlines are really important. You have the Mormon Church doing a lot of research, genealogical research, searching for these satanic family bloodlines. They share that information with the Central Intelligence Agency, who is then able to work at bringing those families into the project. When a family is discovered and they bring their children into the project, that family and the way it's treating its children, abusing them and raping them and being involved with all kinds of bad stuff, that family is now protected under the 1947 National Security Act because that family is involved with the project. They're also protected under the 1949 Central Intelligence Agency Act. Their activities, the abuse of their children, all those things that they're doing for programming that child. And so they select from those satanic family bloodlines. Those satanic family bloodlines, they call us the chosen ones. They would also call us CIA kids. But we were what were referred to as the chosen. And that's because we came from satanic family bloodlines. But they'll also pull from children that are orphans, children that have lost their parents. Their guardian might be abusing them. They're able to pull from them. And a lot of times, if you're not in a satanic family bloodline, you're a lot more disposable. And they're able to use you for other things, such as even killing you in front of a group of children who are chosen in order to traumatize those chosen children and use you for programming. And then they'll just use abused children that have been abused. And boy, it's a rough deal, man. Those kids that were orphans and those kids that just came from families that could give a crap less about those kids. It's disgusting, but I was blessed to be one of what we call the chosen. That's one of the reasons I'm still alive. And so they pull from a lot of different faucets. And so it disgusts me when I see things like everyone now. It's amazing to me how quickly people forget. But where are those 300,000 children that came over the border that just got lost by the Biden administration? Where did they go? Did they harvest them for their organs? Did they use them in satanic rituals and harvest their blood for the adrenochrome so that they could drink it? These people in the satanic elite, they consider the blood, fresh blood drawn through trauma, to be the fountain of youth. And so there's a market for things like kids that they can abuse and traumatize and then murder and slit their throat out and consume their blood because they're getting what they consider to be the fountain of youth, all those drugs and hormones that are mixed into that blood. And so it's all disgusting. What tactics do they use to create dissociative identity disorder? We've talked about that a lot in other interviews. You can find that on my website. We're talking about sexual abuse, incestual sexual abuse from basically the time you're born, torture, watching other children or people be tortured, murder, watching other children be murdered, cannibalism, the consumption of blood. When I say cannibalism, I don't just mean the consumption of blood. I also mean the consumption of human flesh. I was made to eat human flesh as well. And so they use all kinds of different things to traumatize you. And then Mara S. wanted to add to all that. on X, and she said, good questions to add. Do the parents sell their kids to Disney? I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question. There's a marketplace for these children, and the CIA is not the only one involved in it. And then she goes on, do they know what they are getting into? Not all know what they're getting into, no. A lot of this information is compartmentalized, but some of them do, and they know enough that they should know that they should not be getting into this. But like I said, when a family signs up for the project or an individual who's abusing a child and becomes exposed, you might have law enforcement come to them and say, well, we're going to get you out of this if you sign up for this project. And then you're going to be allowed to keep abusing this kid, but you're going to have to do it under these very specific conditions in this scientific program provided by the federal government. And so they don't all know. There's a lot of compartmentalized information, but they know enough they shouldn't be doing it. And then you have the whack jobs like my father, who have been, it runs in the family. They're involved with the agency, they're involved with the project, and it's just a continuation for God and country. And there are people out there who believe that through trauma-based mind control, we can bring world peace. Kathy O'Brien's going to talk about that more than I am, but there are people like that. My grandparents were like that. My grandfather had fought in World War II. My grandmother had lost her first husband to World War II. These are people that were traumatized by war, and they believed that we could bring world peace by controlling everyone and keeping everyone in line under the same narrative and prevent world war. Well, they were wrong. They were lied to, and we're going to be experiencing world war on a scale I don't think we've ever seen before. And that's an opinion, and I don't want to go too far into opinion. So, next question. Ashley Carter Forrest. This is just an observation, but I've been obsessing over it and needed to tell someone. I think it's incredibly curious that Paris and Nikki were also victims with J.R. J.R. Paris did her MTV show in Arkansas. Clintons are from Arkansas. Trips to Arkansas were in the Epstein files. That all makes a lot of sense to me. The Hilton family was deeply involved with the trauma-based mind control program, and the Hilton girls were involved in it. And so I was supposed to marry Nikki. We were engaged. I learned about that engagement back in 1998, but I was never allowed to remember it. And so it took a lot of journaling and working through it for me to come to terms with that. But it does not surprise me to see the Hiltons in the Epstein files, because the Hiltons are deeply involved with the CIA's trauma-based mind control program. And that man, Richard, is a piece of human garbage who made his girls be involved with child pornography. I don't know how far back. I can remember when I was made to make a porno with Nikki in 98 in that hotel, and it was just second nature to Nikki. I can remember talking about the film equipment and Nikki saying, oh, well, my parents' film equipment is better than this. Like it was just normal that we were filming this stuff. And it was normal for these girls to be involved with that. It was just part of life. And so it's not surprising at all for me to see that. And then I was made to run in the most dangerous game with them. That was back in 1993. And people can find that information. And by being involved, like I said before, with the project, that Hilton family was provided protection under the 1947 and 1949 Central Intelligence Agency Act. And so it was given protection by those laws. So there's a lot of elite families that are involved with this stuff. And so none of the Epstein stuff is surprising to me. It's disgusting and disturbing, but not surprising in the least. I started remembering this stuff before the Epstein files came out. And so people talk about cannibalism and child abuse and human hunting. And it's like, well, duh, we've been trying to tell you people about that for years. This is going on. And now you're finally seeing it. Yeah, it's frustrating, but I'm glad that people are starting to see it. I shouldn't be so cynical, Emma. I apologize. Yep. So moving on, this is from Courtney Christofferson 100. And it says, I'd love to know anything else he could share about the Hilton family. So this is about the Hiltons, and whether he thinks Paris Hilton is putting her children through the same trauma she went through as a child. Hunting parties. Her son was seen not too long ago with what looked like black eyes. That's a terrible thing. It's a family affair. Now we're just talking about my beliefs, because I can't tell you with certainty, because I did not witness her abusing her children. But according to my experience, yes, this is not going to stop. It's going to continue in the family. And to say that a child had black eyes is horrific, because my understanding is when you abuse a child and you anally rape them, they get what's called panda eyes, where they get two black eyes from that abuse and from that physical trauma. And so that is very concerning. And so I do worry about not only Paris's kids, but also Nikki's kids. But there's nothing I can do about it. Nikki, she's married to James Rothschild now. And not a good, I'm not even going to go there. So I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, it's a family affair. It's not going to end. The antisocial worker. This is a question by an individual who calls himself the antisocial worker. Yeah, some of these names are so creative. I appreciate that. What does the healing process entail? Excellent question. I know you mentioned Kathy O'Brien's book and how it helps to write out the memories, but then what? Have you used EMDR to reprocess those memories? As a trauma therapist, I'd love to know the process and concepts behind your brain's healing. Excellent questions. I really appreciate that. So a lot of my work has been in journaling. I have worked extensively on journaling and being able to remember events that I've lived through in my life. And that has helped me to heal, because I've been able to face directly that trauma that I went through, remember it, process it. It has allowed my brain to heal. It's also allowed my body to heal, because these memories can get locked in the body as well. When I remembered that guy punching me in the face when we went over to his home after we'd been in Japan and gotten rid of Masaru Takumi, we went to get rid of the guy who burned me and tortured me and scarred me with the cigarette. This was talked about in our last interview, Emma. And when he saw me at the front door to his home that night, he punched me in the face and he hit me so hard he knocked me out. And when I remembered those events occurring, my face literally popped. I could feel it. It just went pop, and I could hear it, because I'd finally remembered it. That had been locked away in my subconscious, and my body had locked it away. And so when you're able to remember these things, that's why it's so important to journal. It is so important to remember your past, because you might be going through physical ailments in your body that are because you haven't remembered trauma you were put through that you have to release. And so your body will just let it go. When you remember it, you can heal from it. And so, and that's been several things. I've had seizures from all the electrocution I was put through. I go through those oftentimes after interviews like this. I'll experience seizures when I lay down and try to go to sleep, and that it's painful and disorienting. And when I'm really going through memories really heavy in the journaling process, I'll go through those seizures a lot more. And it gets to where I can't even function sometimes because it's so bad. But that's from all the electrocution I was put through. EMDR, I don't even know what that is. Do you know what that is, Emma? What is EMDR? Do you know?
Yeah, it's used a lot in therapeutic settings with therapists that deal with extreme trauma. And I think it's also, good for people who didn't go through extreme trauma, from what I understand. But it's kind of more of an alternative therapy. There's like a light set up in front of somebody, and it kind of is on a stand. And the person follows the light with their eyes. And so it essentially, it kind of like puts you in like a light trance in a sense, where you have something to focus on. And in that process of your eyes moving, it allows suppressed memories to come up for some people who do it. So some people don't recommend it. Some people have had bad experiences. It's a controversial thing, but there are some survivors who have recovered memories from doing this type of therapy and who advocate for it. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I'll look into that.
You can get them for your house and stuff too, but obviously if you're remembering stuff for new people, that's sort of what I understand for people who are just waking up. It might not be the best thing. I've heard from therapists that it's a better type of therapy for survivors who are a little bit further along in their healing journey.
And you're aware of when you get triggered.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're not in like a full trance. It's not like hypnotism. It's just kind of like you have something to distract you by looking at something. And so it kind of like lets your unconscious mind be a little bit more relaxed and able to for parts to come up, and it's sort of like a more relaxed, conscious way of being in a trance in a sense, just kind of like a distraction for your mind.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'll look into it more. I'm sorry I can't answer anything about that, but thank you, Emma, for being able to talk about that. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. And so that's about all I can cover there, except I do want to cover a couple more things really quick. And so
and real quick too, it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's just for people who don't know what it means.
Gotcha. Okay. Another thing that I have been I found helpful, and this is because of Kathy's work, I want to add. And so in Kathy's work, PTSD Time to Heal, she talks about wearing a watch and keeping track of time, just like my grandfather told me when I was 8 years old after I'd been baptized or during that period. And so I wear my watch everywhere I go. I have it here, and I keep track of time. And then she talks about putting together collages. A lot of people find that they can help piece things together by putting a collage together, different clippings. Kathy talks a lot about pulling from magazines and stuff, the news, and then making collages and stuff like that. And I see that personally as an artistic expression. I'm not a collage guy at all, but I like to draw. And so I will draw and try to work because I see the art as an avenue to the subconscious. And so I have some paintings and stuff that I'll start sharing more. Where it's interesting to see, because when you see it, when I was doing those paintings, before I started to remember this stuff, I would tell myself, I want to communicate my subconscious onto this canvas. That's my goal. And so I would work with that in mind. And so I will share that more, but that's how I approach creativity and releasing my subconscious thoughts on paper more than with like a collage. So I'll do drawing, I'll do painting. I haven't done enough of it lately. I was working on a comic strip here a little while ago, and that's something yeah, that's something I'm going to pursue, because it's a really good avenue to enter people's conscious framework and be able to discuss complicated matters through a medium that isn't overwhelming for them. And so I'll be working on that in the future as well. And then something else I found really important, and Kathy talks about this, is rest. Make sure that you rest. You know, when you're a trauma-based mind slave and you're being put through programming, they don't let you rest. You would be kept up for hours and hours and hours and hours. You might not be able to sleep at all for days. You'll be put through programming. And so for me, it's important to make sure I always get enough rest. I'm always trying to pay attention to that. And that's something as a survivor we have to pay attention to, is our bodies and taking care of ourselves. And that includes resting, but also eating well. Don't feed yourself garbage. Don't go to Mickey D's and get a Big Mac and a big fry and a Sprite and eat that for dinner. Go find good food, make a good meal, a good balanced diet. Find what makes you feel most whole in the world of food. And so I am really lucky in that my wife is so aware of food and how it affects the body and the mind. She has an autoimmune disease. And yeah, and so she really struggles with a lot of foods. And so I've been really blessed in that we eat really, really well in our house. But I have to be careful because at work, I might go to lunch and I might not be feeling very good in my mind. And I might be like, oh, I'm going to go to Wendy's and I'm going to get, you know, a double whatever. And then I eat it. And then I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? You know, it's because I was seeking out a part of my childhood. That personality was trying to relive moments in the past, and that personality was used to that. And so as you heal, you have to learn to integrate those personalities and be like, wait a minute, no, I'm not going to go get that double cheeseburger. I'm going to eat something really good that'll feed my body and my soul. And so I try to eat good, and I'm getting a lot better at it as the years go by. So eat well, get a lot of rest. And then something else that's really important is learn to love and to be loved. When you have been raised in a bad family and you were abused for your life, your whole life, those who were supposed to love you hurt you the most. And so it is so difficult just to even learn how to love yourself. And that's where learning how to rest, learning how to eat good, learning how to take care of yourself, because you didn't even learn how to love yourself. There's parts of me, I just hate myself. I hate life. I hate me. I hate what I was made to endure. I hate what I was made to do. But I've learned to deal with that, and I've learned to integrate those thoughts. And they're not my thoughts. They're from different personalities that I have to all bring together into one, and I have to learn how to deal with it and learn how to cope with it. And I've had to learn how to love myself and take care of myself. And I've had to learn how to love others, because when you're brought up in a family and in an environment where love is fake, you have to learn how to love. And so I would suggest learn to love yourself, and learn to be loved by others. It's tough because people like me, we don't trust hardly anyone. I mean, I was told as a child, you can't trust anyone. Nobody, not your parents, not your grandparents, nobody. You can't trust anyone. And so for me, it's been really difficult to learn to trust and to learn to love other people. And something that can help people with all of that is our animal friends. And so our animal friends are so good at teaching us love, teaching us trust. And so I really appreciate that from them. They've taught me a lot. And so I would recommend getting some animal friends. It could be a cat, it could be a dog. I have cats and I have a dog.
Good
Because
for you.
yeah, because they're really
So
good.
healing.
Yeah, and they're so helpful. And sometimes I'm frustrated. I'm like, oh, I gotta take the dog out or whatever, or the dog's puking on the floor, or I gotta clean up the, whatever. But no, they are very good for you. And so learn to love your animal friends. That's a good place to start. So I really appreciated the anti-social workers questions, and so I hope I answered them as much as I am able.
And I just want to add too, for people, JR does have a lot on his website. If you're interested in seeing some of his artwork that he has done, he does have a few of his drawings and artwork on his website under what is MK Ultra, the tab. He has, I think, 3 or 4 of his drawings on there. So you can go ahead and go through his website too and just see some of the things that his unconscious mind drew on paper, and that he was able to later on reflect on after he got his memories and say, oh my gosh, this was actually very meaningful. It didn't feel meaningful while I was drawing it, but it actually has part of my story in it. So it's interesting to go back and look at that. So I'd encourage you guys to go check that out too.
Yeah, and some of that stuff, like that drawing there, Emma, that was done years and years ago when I was deep in the project. And so there's a lot going on there. Yeah, if people want to look at those and look through that, yeah, it's very interesting. And I'll try to share more. I have some things I need to share more, and I'll do that on X and on my website more. So I don't think in our time that we're going to be able to cover all of the rest of the questions. And so I'll do another one here. I'm just going to keep going down in order. And so this is Alberta Guy. And Alberta Guy asked, what percentage of upper echelon LDS is of an occult satanic nature? I can't answer that. I know that Monson was a Satanist at the top of the church, hiding in the church. I know that Eyring also was a Satanist hiding at the top of the church. And Hinckley was a Satanist hiding at the top of the church. There were other members in the Quorum of the 70 and in the 12 Apostles that were in the Satanic Network. But even Monson, when I met with Monson in 1998, he told me not everyone's involved in what he called the left-hand path. Mm-hmm. There were people in the church who were good people who were trying to serve the people. And he talked to me about how important it was to keep those people busy doing things so that they were never even noticing what the left-hand path was doing in the church. And so I can't answer that. I know that there was a lot of them, but I can't tell you how many, or it's not all of them. There's still some good people in the church. And so that just is what it is. His second question was MK Ultra ever explained in specifics by the handlers? It seems like all of Sweet's experiences were dissociative. Seldom would they explain all the specifics to you. No, I can't think of a time when all the specifics were, other than when I met with Hinckley, when we did a presentation for him. They explained my uncle did a presentation for Gordon B. Hinckley in 1995, and myself and another mind slave were used in that presentation to describe to Hinckley what was going on with the CIA kids that were being pulled from the satanic families in the Mormon church. And he described that process of the project and what we were being put through and what we were able to do. And all that was classified, and that was just for Hinckley. his security entourage heard a lot of it too. They were sworn to secrecy. But that's one of the things that really makes me frustrated is there's a lot of people out there who know about this stuff, who've witnessed it, and they're afraid to talk about it.
Yes.
They're afraid. Well, let me tell you something. You need to let go of that lame ass fear. Give me a break. What are you afraid of? You were made to sign a contract. The contract is now void. It's time to talk. It's time to share this information because this stuff's rotten. This is the behavior of traitors in our country, the behavior of evil satanic pedophiles and murderers and child rapists. And no, you can't defend them. I don't care what you signed. You need to start talking. There's a lot of people in the world that need to start talking, and they need to forget about those stupid whatever it is that they signed. And so I never consciously signed anything. I'm going to talk until I'm dead. And after I'm dead, I'm still going to be talking somewhere because it's wrong. The children of God deserve a lot more than this. So there is an LDS element in southern British Columbia, Canada, Bountiful. And then this individual Alberta guy is wanting to know if there's trafficking there. I don't know the answer to that. I did know a guy when I worked for Loomis Construction. His name was Brian. I don't know his last name. He came down from Canada to work for Loomis, and he was involved with some kind of satanic family there in the Mormon church, and he was used by the CIA. He was used in the murder of that guy in Haley. And after that murder in Haley, he didn't last too long at Loomis before he went back home to Canada. And so I can't answer that question. I do know that Brian was from Canada, but that's as much as I know about that. So, yeah. So I'm going to stop there, Emma. We've been talking for about 2 hours now. And
it's a great conversation.
Yeah, and so we can cover the rest of those questions. I'm not going to add to them. I want people to understand that this is a lot of questions to go through.
There's a lot of questions. What are we? Maybe a little bit over halfway through.
Yeah, so I'm going to make a note where we're leaving off right now, so that I can later come back to this.
And if you have time for just one more question to just end on a high note for people.
Yeah.
I personally wanted to ask you, for people listening who are struggling, because whether you're a survivor or not, we're all bombarded with trauma every day, whether it's from personal experience or from MSM, wars. You talked about a lot of the global traumas that are happening now, not to mention people going through it on a personal level. Yeah. When you're in distress, when you're destabilized, when you just want to quit, when you're going through frustrations or you want to delete your accounts or just, go quiet and just stop. How do you keep going? Like, what keeps you going? How do you get up whenever you feel just kicked down? I'd love for other people to maybe hear this from you so they can get some inspiration when they're not feeling good too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Emma. I've learned, I've put this on X before, I've learned to rest when you're weak. And when you're strong, speak out. And so for me, when I feel weak, I rest. And when I feel strong, I speak out. And so it's important to rest and to give yourself time. Time is really important. We tend to feel like hopeless, depression. I go into deep states of depression, deep states of hopelessness. And these are things that I go through, and my wife has to witness it. My children even have to witness it. And I allow myself to go through it. I let myself. I will even listen to sad music, for example, and allow myself to go to that bottom so that I can experience that and then come out of it. And so don't be afraid of what you're going through, but understand you're going through it. Understand that it is only a part of the journey, it's not the destination. And so I've gone in my lows enough time to know I'm going to come back up. And I just have to ride this low until I come back up. And so that's what I would say to folks. It's okay to go down. It's okay to cry. There are times when I've gotten home from work and I'm like, I am spent. I have nothing left to give to the world. Nothing. And I've had to just sit in my truck and weep for up to an hour. Just sit there and cry and cry and cry. And I'm okay with that because it releases the tension. It lets it out. It lets me recognize the pain and it lets it move out. And so don't try to hide from your pain. Accept it. Accept your depression. But understand that depression is going to leave. It's not the destination. It's just part of the journey. You're going to be stronger when you come out of it. And so that's what gives me strength is I know that when I come out, I'm going to be stronger. And I know that it's not me. I know that it's a part of me and I have to work through it, but it's not me. And so don't be afraid of your pain. Don't be afraid of it. A lot of folks are afraid of their pain. Embrace it if you have to and accept it and integrate it and learn what it means. You know, Emma, the other day I was triggered. I was triggered by a tone call is what it was. And I know exactly what it was because I've been through this roller coaster so many times. And when I first got the call, I said, I'm not answering it. I don't know that number. And then I was curious. And so a little while later, I was like, well, I'm going to call it back. I'm going to see what it was. And so I'll call it back. Well, it goes into it's silent. And then it goes into some weird noises. And then it goes to something. I don't even know what it was going to. And I just shut it off. And I was like, shit. Just shit. I just got triggered. And then I just sat there and was like, well, but I'm strong. I can deal with this. And as my day progressed, it got worse and worse and worse. And I'd forgotten that I'd been triggered and I couldn't understand what was wrong with me. And I came home from work and I was not in my right mind and my wife could recognize it. And then I finally, at like maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock that night, it just hit me. Boom. You were triggered today. You were triggered. And then clarity. And then I was able to come back to center and say, okay, now I know why I was acting this way. Now I understand. And so the more it happens, the more you're able to recognize it. And then once you've recognized it, it's really important to recognize I've been triggered. Because then you can say, okay, let's come back to center. And a really good mental exercise for folks out there is we're dealing with the human mind, with the brain. The brain is constantly being filled with stimulus, whether it's music, whether you're looking at your phone, you're scrolling through videos, whatever it is. Your brain or the outside environment, your brain is constantly being bombarded by stimulus. So a practice I go through is I will stop and I will erase all conscious thought from my mind. I will stop everything in my mind. I won't allow myself to think in words. I won't allow myself to think in colors. I won't allow myself to think in images. I go to zero, nothing. And I eliminate all thought in my brain. And that's able to bring you back to default consciousness. And then from there, I'm able to say, okay, now let's move forward. And so, for people who are going through a hard time, when you go into those really low times, just understand it's going to pass. And the universe is this way. It's a universal law that it gets light and it gets dark. And it's the same with people. We go through these things, but you don't have to let it stick around forever. So don't be afraid of your pain. Try to gain an understanding of what it is. And when I was triggered, Emma, the other day, the thing the CIA didn't realize is that they gave me a memory back. I now, because of that trigger, and the fact that I was able to recognize it, I understand where it came from, and I have a new piece of information to journal with, because because I understand where that trigger came from, and so now I can use that in order to journal that out and gain a clear understanding of some programming I was put through that I've always wondered about and haven't been able to fully understand. Well, thank you, CIA. You helped me to bring some clarity to that. And so the CIA, they think they're really smart, but they're really dumb. They think in a linear process. Kathy O'Brien's right. They're very linear thinkers. They also move through different individuals in charge. And so you might have a new group of people move into the agency who are now in charge over you. Like when Dick Cheney died, for example, who's the boss man now? And so they're going to keep using the same old stupid tactics. And I'm trying to use those tactics to my advantage. And so it helped bring some clarity to a memory. So don't let those downs destroy you. Learn to embrace your pain, learn to work through it, learn to face it, and understand you're gonna come out of it. And when you do, you'll move up again, and you'll be able to feel better, and you'll move through it. And so I hope that gives some encouragement to people, because I go through lows. I go through terrible, terrible lows. But I know I'm going to come out of it, and that's okay. Life is ups and downs, and so I try to work through it. So did that answer your question, Emma?
Oh, more than answered it. And I'm sure it touched the hearts of a lot of people who, are sort of stuck in a low right now, to help lift them out of that, and to just remind them that, like you said, it's not the destination. It's a bump in the road on the journey. It's part of the journey, but it's not going to be the final destination. You're not going to stay there forever, and to just endure it, and that what's on the other side is going to be beautiful. There's a light at the end of the tunnel every time. Just hang in there. That's so important for people to remember that, because it can feel so, just dark and hopeless whenever you're down in those moments. But just to have that little lingering thought in the back of your head, just keep going. It's going to get better. That can make all the difference in somebody recovering from that, and their mental state going through it. So thank you for sharing your process. It's really neat to hear these different parts of your story. We focused a lot in our interviews on your trauma, on the things that you've documented on your website, on your book, and it's really awesome to see these different facets of you. You're so much more than your trauma. Every survivor is. And even though it's so important to talk about the trauma, it's also so important, like you said, to create community, for survivors to get together, for messages to be talked about, to bring awareness. So the purpose goes from pain to something productive that we're doing with it in the world. And we're helping people with it. We're setting captives free, and helping bringing awareness to saving kids, and the healing journey that you've been on. The fact that you're able to be here today and to speak so eloquently and strong on these topics that are so horrific, that you're able to do that knowing that somebody needs to hear it, and that it's going to make a difference, and it's going to create that ripple that you talked about that's going to have an impact on the world, and hopefully encourage other people listening to feel strong enough themselves to talk about it, to advocate for it, to overcome their fear, whatever it is, of talking about it. We really do need more people to join in the conversation. I also loved how you said you just casually incorporate it into conversations. I think that's something else we can all take away from this. If somebody does ask you about, did you see a movie? Reply how JR did. Make this a part of your conversation so we can help normalize it and, create a dialogue around it in society that just isn't there. So I really appreciate you, JR. I love having you on. I know my audience does. You're just a ray of light for people, and you offer so much from your memories to your healing journey to words of encouragement, and we're just all really, really grateful for you. And so I want to just give you a chance again to remind people where they can connect with you, get your book, and where they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, so I'm on X, and they can find me there, Free Slave 777, and they can find me there. And the number 777 is important to me because, yeah, J.R. Sweet, because it's the number that was actually given to me by the agency was 7777. But the number 777 is a godly number. It's a number that represents God. And so I really appreciate that. And then they can also find my website, mormonmonarch.com. And they're welcome to go there. And all my journal memories are free there, as well as the book introduction, the book foreword by my wonderful wife, Kate. And then our works cited and references can also be found there. And so this information is free and available to the public. And then if people want to, if they want a hard copy, then they can buy it under purchase a book. And you don't have to just purchase a book for you. Like I said, one way of joining the movement is to buy the book and send it to somebody who should read it, who would never look at the website or even approach this topic. Just send them the book. Send it to your state representative. Send it to your senator. Flood the senator's office with these books and just say, hey, look, we know what's going on, and you can't hide it anymore. They need to know this. They need to put the fear of God put in them, these people that are involved with this, because it's time to end it. And so they can find my book at my website. And then, feel free to email me. I try to get back to people through my email, but that can be difficult. So people have to be patient. You have to be patient with your healing, and you have to be patient with me and my email. So, yeah. So, yeah.
And he has a contact me or a contact page on his website. And then if you're on X and you connect with him, you can also engage with him on his posts. Again, be patient and realize that he it's not realistic for him to get back to every single person or every single post. But, please engage anyway, share his stuff, comment, help him be seen in the algorithms. You guys can reach out on DMs there also. And again, be patient. But if you guys do want to connect with him or offer him words of encouragement, I would really encourage you guys to do that and to also support, get his book, share it like he said, give it to a friend, keep it in your own collection, give it to your local, senators and politicians to read and spread it, send the link, post the link on your social media for other people to know that it's out there and help advocate. It's such an easy way that we can support survivors. It's free. You can do it from your phone, just sharing the content and, spreading awareness that JR's website and book and social media even exist. It's such a huge thing that you can do. And JR, just thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking about these hard things and for shining a light on them and for giving people hope and encouragement at the same time that you're educating and sharing these parts of your story.
Yeah, you betcha, Emma. Can you still hear me?
I can, yeah.
Can you see me?
I can see you, yep.
Huh. My computer is about to, I think it's about to explode. I don't know what's going on.
No.
I can't, it's weird. Yeah, so I will have to bid you adieu. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're closing up anyways. So you guys, with that being said, thank you so much for listening. God bless you all. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Emma.